Hi, everyone. Welcome to one of my favorite days. It is new release day at Tremendous Leadership, and I am very excited to introduce to you one of our very new authors, Dr. Jason Merritt. Jason, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited for you to share what your book is about, but first, I like to tell our tremendous listeners how I connect with all these incredible wannabe authors and now published authors. So, Jason, when you first reached out to me, maybe 5 or 6 months ago, you had mentioned that you had met my father in Dallas and you were so excited about meeting him and you got a hug. Aren't you blessed? Because a lot
I
of people, they're like,
definitely
oh, I missed a hug, but they'll get a hug in heaven, Lord willing. But anyways, you talked about that and how he was, you think, more excited to meet you than you were him. So just tell us about that first interaction, because that's why we're here, and that's why your book is coming out with tremendous leadership.
definitely. So meeting Charlie, as always, is an unforgettable experience. So I had met him a couple times, just kind of in an audience setting,
Oh, okay.
and I knew who he was, really respected his work and energy, and everything, of course, that he did with his life. And so, being in a position that I happened to be in, I got a backstage opportunity to get to meet him. I was so darn excited. But him being the absolute best at reading people's emotion, it was very private back there. He had just entered the building, and I guess he just saw in my eyes how excited I was, and he picked up on that and amplified it, ran toward me, acting, 10 times more excited than I was to see him. And, that was a very moving moment on the importance of being there for someone else. Just the impact you can make by being excited about somebody. So that was definitely a life moment that I'll never forget.
Wow. Well, Jason, thank you for sharing that. And then after that, we, of course, when we get a query from someone about publishing, we're like, how'd you hear about us? So they told us that. So we're like, oh, that's nice. And then Jason shared a lot, Dr. Merritt shared a lot about his upbringing and some of the things that he went through. And you know what, Jason, if you'd like to just unpack a little bit of that, but it reminded me a lot of my father. People are like, oh, you must have had a lot of tremendous things, a lot of nurturing, a lot of nature, a lot of care. And it was not that way with him. And you shared some really difficult things in your life, which I want to set the stage for why this book is so much more impactful.
Sure. So I think, we can probably all look back and say we had some challenges. And so, I can look back and say these were really uphill battles. But I think, it's important for all of us to realize that we are going to have to face this life. It's a tough life, with challenges and uphill battles that we can either look at it negatively, pessimistically, and use it as an excuse. But I'm sure all your listeners, I think it's probably in common with all of us that we've decided to be positive. We've decided to be resilient and not to look at excuses. And, again, I think I don't want to go into too much detail because everyone was doing their best.
Hmm.
And, it comes down to wanting or needing to find out how to be successful in this life, regardless of what you do or don't have, what mentorship you do or don't have. It comes down, it's our life. We've got to live it well, and we're going to have to be the ones to figure that out.
Absolutely. Well, for our listeners out there, and this is why my father loved books so much. Remember the people you meet, and he just had a couple people in each area of his life, and then way more people, but the books you read. And Jason, I want to talk about for our listeners out there, the book is titled Peak Performance: Unlock the Science of Living an Extraordinary Life. So that just gives you the bottom line of what this book is about. You understand why we were so excited to publish it. But Jason, tell me about what led you to write Peak Performance.
So we all want to make a contribution to this life one way or another. Sometimes it's just through hard work, being kind. You never know necessarily what contribution you're going to be able to make, and even a small one is important. And as I grew and eventually got my doctorate in psychology, the platform that I had to make a difference expanded. And what was really interesting, I guess, for this particular book, 'cause I have started lots of books, and I think a lot of that is just You read, you get inspired, you try to synthesize something new. So synthesis is very complicated. Is this really worth? So I'm recapping something, and that doesn't always seem worth it. And so there's a lot of this is good, but it's not good enough. And so recently, my wife passed away, and she died of cancer, and that got me really thinking that if we have something important to do, if we have something we've been called to do, we don't get an extra minute of our life just because we hesitated.
Mm.
And so this was just a moment that I realized that, again, I need to leave something for my kids. I've read a lot of books and met a lot of people, but they're not going to know that experience if I don't summarize that for them. So it's going to die with me.
Mhm.
And so this was an opportunity for me to say, okay, of all the things that I now understand about living an extraordinary life, the one life that you get, can I summarize that and explain that in one resource that will be a legacy for them? So that was my passion behind it, and that's where this book came from.
Absolutely. And you talked about the catalyst for that. But you mentioned in the book that many success books inspire, but few explain why the tools work. And again, you mentioned your doctoral work in psychology. And for our readers about there, I love that blend of inspiration, but also information. And he mentioned the resources, and I would say the research. So based on your coming from this very heart-centric and head-centric, which is the beautiful blend, what was the gap as we all approach with our research analysis that you were hoping to fill with peak performance? Because there's tons of great books out there, but we're always seeking to add that one little extra drop. And what was that for peak performance?
So what a challenge to answer that question because, like you said, there are tremendous books out there. And I approach this with a lot of really authentic humbleness, right? So,
Yes, you did.
well, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I'm
you
glad that
really
came
did.
out.
Mhm.
So you want to contribute, but yet you wonder, is this good enough to present? So I really tried to take my philosophies out. I did not want to say, well, here's my opinion
Ah,
on what's missing and what's important. I think just because I didn't feel worthy of that with all the great books that are out there. And so what I wanted to contribute with this was when you read a great book, perhaps there's context missing. Perhaps there's that why does this information, why is it effective? And so looking at the constructs that psychology offers. So, okay, we hear about attitude all the time. It's so important to have a good attitude. Well, what exactly is a good attitude? How do we create a good attitude? What does a good attitude do for us? It just the doors it opens and so on. And it's just you look at these different constructs, and when a book is being written, oftentimes the particular background or the engine isn't discussed. It's more contextual.
yes.
And so this kind of the hope was to create that understanding. So when you read another self-help book,
Mhm.
you can quickly identify what is valuable in this and how do I really effectively deploy it.
Mhm.
So hopefully that's the big contribution.
No, it really isn't. And that takes me to one of my next questions. So you write 94% of goals fail before they even get momentum. Why is that number so high? And what are we missing when we set those goals?
Isn't that heartbreaking?
Yes. And we know it. I mean, I wasn't surprised. I'm like, yeah, yeah, I kind of, but we can do something about it. And so, yeah, unpack that for us.
So, again, we're going to probably say this a lot today, awareness.
Ah,
So
mhm.
we've all had goals that we're excited about, and we just don't get to the finish line.
Yes.
And maybe that's 94% of our goals. And so you look at the general population, and I know our hearts go out to anyone that's working hard to achieve or accomplish something, because we do have that. Uh, I guess that tool that we have the experience or the tools to understand how to get to that finish line better than someone that's just trying.
Mm,
And so with the general population, I have some motivation. I'm excited, but the problem is it's so fleeting,
mm,
and there's so many things that come up in life
yeah.
that we do our best until the trade-off isn't there anymore. And then we start over on something else. And if you're not careful, you spend your whole life starting over.
Yes.
With all the energy, right? There was no energy that wasn't put into it. You have all that 100% of your life was put into it, but yet you never really become extraordinary.
Hmm.
And so, basically, the book, and it doesn't really, I don't know if I explain it real well in the book, the background, but the constructs work together in groups to kind of get you to, all right, the first three keep you going. They generate that passion. Without these things, you're going to just keep starting over.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you look at the construct, so your purpose, your engagement or disengagement, are we worried about what people are thinking about us? Are we getting confused? What is our outlook? Are we positive? Are we is things happening to us and so they're frustrating us and we're pessimistic and so we quit? Without those things really truly understood and addressed, we're going to keep starting over. So that's particular to the 94%.
Absolutely. And you hit the word purpose. And that's a word that gets thrown out a lot. Well, purpose, 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 purpose driven life, purpose this. And then you think, okay, well, there's passion, there's vision, there's calling, there's singularity from spark. But talk to me. I mean, when we talk about purpose and we know that is so important. So is it that we don't have our purpose structured into long-term goals? Is it because and Charles, one of his funniest lines is nothing works unless you work it. Yeah, you can have all the emotion and motivation in the world, but it comes to the fleshing out, the habits and stuff like that. So do you think that's what and if somebody starts to fall into that 94% category, what do we have to do? Is it a refinement of the purpose? Is it that we need to get back in your book and find more of the goal setting, or is it maybe a blend of both?
Well, I sure appreciate that question. I'm going to lean forward on this one. So, when it comes to purpose, and when you read it in the books you mentioned, it is the author knows what they're talking about, and they know how important that purpose is. So, in this particular book, in fact, I felt bad, and I know I mentioned this to you. I'm like, is this a good way to start this book? Because it was really, I'm going to use the word engaging, if not cognitively involved.
Yes. Well, you got to understand the science behind it, though.
Right.
Otherwise, it's too woo-woo. It's too
Yes.
like a song, and I get that, but you gotta get to the brass tacks of what is purpose. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go on, but
No,
you got
no,
me
no.
leaning forward too.
I appreciate you mentioning that. So it was, so I really wanted to get this, and I hope I got all the chapters right. And I really tried to step back and make sure, can someone just read this and use it? I
Mhm.
didn't want to get overly technical. I didn't want to get verbose. I tried to be efficient with it. But in this particular construct, I think in general, we try to have a purpose statement. We try to have a mission statement and we check this box and we say, yes, I have a purpose statement, or yes, I have a mission statement. And maybe we even have one, but unless it's done well, and you'll know it's done well. And I had to do it, I think 4 iterations for me, even with the information I had. It didn't take that long. You can do this in a couple hours, but it takes a couple hours. And I did it
Yes.
over a series of a few days. And like the first iteration, I thought I had it right. Like, this is my purpose statement, but I could leave home without it. And I realized I'm not quite there.
Right.
And so I refined it. And I'm like, this is better. This was missing. And I was like, this is much better, but I could still leave home without it. And finally, when I got it right, I understood, okay, you know what? I got the format right. I've got the questions right. I've got the declaration of statements right. I've got my sub goals right. Now I've got it posted all over my office. It's in my it's in my wallet, it's in my computer, but I take it with me to church. It's my Bible. I can't not have it with me because it means that much to me. And when I get confused, I'm low on time, I'm low on self-regulation, I'm low on resources. I pull out my purpose statement and I say, this is where I need to spend my time that I've got, my
Mm.
resources that I have. So it just opens up the door for your energy to be extraordinary.
And if the reader gets your book, will you work them through that, teasing out their goal?
Yes, it's
Okay,
it's
good.
in there. The process is there,
It
absolutely.
isn't, but it takes time. But a couple hours versus a couple years
Oh,
of jump. We've all been there, and it was good, but it wasn't great, and it was exhausting and frustrating. Okay, I digress. I'm preaching the choir. So
well,
let's
and Lawrence,
talk.
let me
Oh,
just say one last
I'm
thing
sorry. Go
on
ahead.
it.
Hmm.
You find yourself 15, 20, 30 years later,
Uh-huh.
you went in the wrong direction.
I
You
know.
you were
Yeah.
successful, but you weren't passionate.
Yeah. 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 And that's where a lot of people come into our space because they're like, I want to be free to serve in my highest capacity, whether I'm 20 or I'm 80. My email that went out today, a guy sent me a note and said, I'm 81 and starting a new business. Here's a copy of the new common denominator of success. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. I love it. All right. So you talk about you contrast motivation, and I love this old-timey word, volition. All right, we don't hear that a lot. What's the difference and why is volition, I love this word you use, the real engine behind sustained effort?
Well, don't we hate that that word's not used more often?
Well, I think it's a conspiracy that's true because everybody's like, oh, and I'm like, What's missing?" So, yeah, let's unpack that.
So I know everybody's gonna say amen when we hear this. Motivation is fleeting.
Yeah.
And so the problem is on a given day and in a given hour, we might be really excited about something that's really important to us. And that is great. It's so nice when that happens.
It is.
But don't we know that so often in even a given day, we're going to lose that motivation and something's going to distract us. And so volition takes us to a much deeper level that if done right, if we understand, a lot of this is just awareness. It's not that complicated. It's just what is volition? And it's that passion. It's I don't want to do this. Things are in my way, but I really want this. And so, it's for lack of a better word, if I'm going to use another word, it's self-discipline.
Hmm.
And I don't like self-discipline because it is also that tank can go to empty.
Right.
And so, but without volition, if all we have is motivation, we cannot harness grit. We can't harness resilience.
Mhm.
We all the constructs that are so powerful. And I'm glad you asked this question on volition. Of the 12, I'm asking myself, do I need all 12? Is there 13? Should I just do 10? Volition is my least favorite because it's the self-discipline piece,
Yeah.
which I don't trust. But without volition, you don't get the other 11. So did I unpack that well enough?
Oh, you did. And I love that you keep touching on self-awareness, but volition is self-discipline. And then you talk about motivation. You just named three of the five key elements of emotional intelligence. And we've all heard EQ, EQ, EQ rules the world. Yes, it does. But self-awareness, it all hinges on that, followed by self-discipline, which is maybe one millionth of a percent less. You can't have one without the other, but you have to be aware first. And then because motivation then is an outpouring of that. So you absolutely unpacked it. Yeah, let's bring volition back. That's a phenomenal word. Yeah. And here's another one of my favorite words that I use all the time that I love it. You call it goal congruency. I love value congruency. That's why I tell you, you've got to be, in sync from a value standpoint. But you talk about the concept of goal congruency. And a lot of people, if you're not congruent, and for those listeners, are you not in sync? And if you're getting that rub with your boss or your mission statement or your what you're doing with your health, that rub, that dissonance, it means something's not in alignment. And that's your inner stuff talking about it. So in goal congruency, how do people align daily actions with deeper goals without feeling overwhelmed or rigid?
Great questions.
Thank you. It's a
Yeah,
great book. They
yeah,
gave me
well,
these books.
thank you. We're in the middle of this, aren't we? We know what disrupts us.
Yes.
And we have all these great intentions and the
Mm,
volition, the self-discipline that we're willing to bring into the conversation or the actions every day, but they fail us. They fail us. And so when
mm,
we talk about goal congruency, now we're in the top 1% now. And by the way, I don't know if we addressed this today, but I wanted to kind of mention that I found it really interesting as I was writing this book, that these constructs, they kind of mirrored the Pareto principle, which shocked me to a large degree. Like, a little bit does a lot.
yes.
Then it takes quite a bit more to get some more. But now we're in that 1% to be an outlier, to be extraordinary. And so there's five constructs just for that last 1%. And goal congruency is one of those. And so one of the biggest motivations I had for getting my doctorate, it's really what got me into that really difficult journey, my volition, was, can there be a good habit? All the things I do naturally without having to have self-discipline are bad. I can eat donuts without being told. I cannot work out without, it's just a great habit. I can do that easily. So can there be a good habit? So goal congruency kind of falls along with automaticity, a good habit, which there's a journey for this, but it can be done. It's not easy, not nearly as easy as eating donuts. But it can be done. And if you can create good habits, which still need to be dynamic, we can put this automaticity in our life, but as we grow, as things change, we still have to have that dynamic process to adjust so we don't become neurotic and rigid, with things that used to work but are now holding us back. And so goal congruency kind of harnesses several things. So we're asking this question: what action do I need to take that is going to take me a small step closer to where I'm trying to get? And
Mhm.
can I do that consistently? And if I can, I'm going to have extraordinary outcomes, and it's not going to be hard. It's going to be effortless.
I love that. Well, it reminds me of the I think it's Updike said the quote, inch by inch, life is a cinch.
Yes.
Chunk little things, give yourself grace. And I had to laugh when you're talking about, I think the Apostle Paul said that. You don't have to teach me to sin. I already know. Charles
Yes.
Charles said that when he first got saved. He's like, what am I supposed to do as a Christian? And the pastor was like, well, you need to, or one of his pastors like, well, I hate sin. And Charles thought to himself, brother, you don't know the right sins. I would include eating donuts in that. So that's very interesting that it is not what our natural state is,
Mhm.
but we can build up enough resilience, enough recurring synapse, enough brain memory, and enough conviction that what that habit does become entrenched in us.
Yes, and it becomes effortless.
Yes,
And that is where you can finally throw, you can throw volition out the window, that
yes,
self-discipline out the window, because now we have it automated.
yes,
Oh,
absolutely. And that eventually does happen. Now, I love that you talked about the most surprising thing you discovered, and you talked about the Pareto principle, because our book that's coming out, that just came out before your book, is the 80-20 principle.
oh,
The last product, the 80-20 life, the last productivity book you'll ever need. And it said the same thing. List the 10 things you got to do today, pick two. You do those two. You don't worry
Yes.
about the eight. And then guess what? It's so simple, but I love the for our listeners out there, I can't emphasize enough. I think you said it. The small bits yield start that tipping point, that flywheel where you start to see the biggest movement towards it. And we get hung up sometimes in the frozen in the administrivia, and not moving the big blocks.
Absolutely. Well, and you can, again, you can do the first three principles, the first three constructs, and be really successful. How bad's that? That it's going to take you into a standard deviation. You're going to look different than most people. And quite
Mm,
frankly, that is wonderful to be able to live with. I have had a useful life. And if you keep going with it, you really kind of this, I'm doing really good work, I'm passionate about it, and you apply four more constructs, then you become maybe two standard deviations, and you're like that go-to person on this thing, and you're contributing more. And if you have the stomach for it, and it's really that passion, and you want to live with the one life that you have, an extraordinary life, then you can take it the next five constructs and just become the best
mm.
it's ever been in what you're doing.
I love that. I love that you keep raising the bar in your life. We're supposed to finish the race strong, and this is what it's all about. So, Jason, if the reader's sitting here on the fence thinking, and I don't think they're thinking this, I've read a dozen self-help books. Why is this one different? You pretty much already said it, but go ahead, brother, bring it home again.
First of all, I would say thank you for reading books.
You're right. You're already well on your way. Just
The
by listening
apps
to our podcast, you are.
Absolutely. It's so important to have this input in your life. So, again, I would humbly say that, if you were to do one more, and if it comes down to two, I'm okay with being excluded if you're just keep reading. But if this book, if you have the opportunity to read Peak Performance, the bottom line is I'm going to try to unpack why all the other self-help books work. It's going to bring more awareness to what you have already read. What was working? Well, why was that working so well? And when you understand something, you can amplify the effectiveness of what was working. And then furthermore, it's going to amplify all the future books you read, because somewhere in those books, these constructs are being deployed. And if you can recognize those, you can use them better and make them work again within your particular context that you're having to deal with. So I hope it's a good contribution to society and humankind, but I've done my best, and I hope it's useful to those that
Abs
read it.
Absolutely. Jason, thank you so much. Anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to share with our listeners?
I would just like to put a plug out to just your program, you and Jen, and
Thank
just tremendous leadership. It's well known, but it's not well known enough. You all are doing such important work, and we only get this one life. I'm thinking, we have 8 billion people out there, and millions and millions of people that, if they would use and harness on to tremendous leadership, everything you have done, everything your organization does, everything Charlie put in motion, their life's going to be better. So keep it up.
Thank you, Jason. And Dr. Merritt, I am honored. Honestly, I'm honored. This is the zone that I have been passionate about long before I came back from tremendous leadership. And as Charles believed, why he looked at people with such love, he saw the extraordinariness already in them. And so I know this book, as you said, the readers are going to recognize, those that love personal development are going to look at this and say, yeah, I'm aware of this. But I love that you really take it and you put it in a space where now I go, now I understand why that didn't work at that season of my life, or I understand why it did. And there's such power in that, because when you understand why something did or didn't work, then you're more able to go to the next step, as you said, and keep going through that book and hitting those next levels. So again, Jason, thank you so much for everything that you've done. And for our listeners out there, remember, You will be the same person 5 years from now that you are today, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. You have just met the tremendous Dr. Jason Merritt, and I know you're a different, more tremendous person already. Please be sure, come over to our site, Tremendous Leadership, or pick up a copy of Jason's book on Amazon.com. It'll be also be available in your bookstores if you make a request for it to come into there. So thank you again, everybody. Please share this with other people that want to learn how they can unlock the science of living an extraordinary life. Stay tremendous, everybody. Bye-bye.